Hello everyone and welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. Today is February 28th, 2017, the last day of February. Shinzo Abe is in hot water this last week. In Diet hearings, he is being pummeled by the opening of a school in Osaka, presumably at first going to be named the Abe Shinzo Memorial School. It is under a lot of investigation. We're going to talk about that now and how serious it is. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Dr. Nancy Snow and Michael Cucek. Welcome back.
Hello.
It's great.
Michael, you're watching this too. This is huge for the Prime Minister. Nancy, this has tremendous branding risk for the Prime Minister. In fact, some people say this could topple his administration.
It's interesting that you reference Prime Minister Abe because I look at this in a different light. I see this as very damaging to Akiya Abe, Mrs. Abe. She has been the softening agent for Abe with his far-right nationalism ties. And here we have a case where she was named the honorary principal.
Right.
And she had to remove her name, and she said, I never endorsed that. And yet it sort of puts her in a different boat. This is someone who came out very favorably for LGBTQ rights, participated in Rainbow Pride. She has often differed with her husband on issues, including all of the concrete barriers along the seashore on nuclear power. So she's always, like many spouses of high-profile, ultra-nationalistic figures, if they have a spouse who is speaking softly, she referenced even her love of the Korean culture, and as sort of a counter effect to the comfort women trouble. And so now you have to wonder, is this a Mrs. Abe who was really always in lockstep with her husband, or was she just plain ignorant? And I really think it was a little bit maybe of both, of a certain naivete, that she went along with this honorary title, and yet she also told them, I guess a couple of years ago, she had said, my husband is in favor of the curriculum that you're using. So you really have to wonder, who do we have here now? So it's not just damaging to Abe and brand Abe for Japan, but also to her.
Yes, this is, I think, one of the biggest scandals to hit the Prime Minister. He is implicated by the actions that she's taken, but the building of this elementary school following the kindergarten, this has been in a long process, and you can't really think that she didn't know what she was getting into and the Prime Minister didn't know what his wife was getting into. This was supposed to be the first Shinto school in Japan, Michael.
Well, we need to really march this back for the viewers who may not be totally clear as to what all the parts of this are.
Okay,
there are two scandals here. One is an ultra-right organization that has been in existence for decades, operating very quietly under the radar in Osaka, operating in this case under a single individual named Kagoike, who is a member of the Nippon Kaigi, the Japan Conference, the very famous right-wing organization that Mr. Abe and Governor Koike of Tokyo are all members of. Right. This gentleman has been the director of a kindergarten, an ultra-nationalist kindergarten for decades, and it's operated. Nobody cared about it.
Who cares about it? I mean, it's a kindergarten, so, right, it could go under the radar.
And the place was an absolute Disneyland of weirdness, and based on basically taking the education system that existed up until 1945 and reproducing it. So that there was basically emperor worship.
Make Japan beautiful. Again.
Beautiful again. Every day they bowed to the image of the current emperor. They sang the Kimigayo. They then recited the imperial rescript on education. These are 3- and 5-year-olds for whom the language of that document was meaningless. And it was going on for years. Suddenly, however, for some reason, Abe Akiye found out about this place and turned up and spoke. And she was introduced at that speech as the new honorary principal. Whether she was in any way had advanced knowledge of this honor that she was going to be given is a question. But she allowed her picture and a statement by her to be on the incipient school's website.
This is the first scandal.
This is the first scandal. The second scandal is how this school that is going to be built, a real elementary school, how it got the land that sits underneath it. And that is where Mr. Abe gets in up into his elbows.
Heads will roll.
Heads will roll. Someone
Definitely
has to,
somebody's going to
because
take down for this.
That's right. Because the land itself was, the story as it's coming out, and it's coming out not only in the scandal mags, but in the mainstream media, which means it's serious.
It is serious, and every day new revelations.
And in the international media.
And in the international media. But it was, and I must say that I was clued into this, first of all, by a South Korean journalist, that of the existence of this original kindergarten, not the elementary school. I learned about the elementary schools opening from following this story. The land deal is incredible. The land, the Asahi Shimbun, which has a chip on its shoulder as regards the Abe administration, found out that the sale price was secret. And it was determined by finance ministry bureaucrats entirely without any kind of bidding process or open attempt to sell the land in a public way, entirely in secret to this organization. One, that it was 1/10 what a neighboring parcel was, that was approximately the same size, that had been sold to the city publicly, and then that it was a waste dump, whether it's toxic waste, we don't know, but nevertheless, there was garbage, and that garbage was not removed from the site, and that the school had been paid by the national government for the removal, so that it's effectively what they paid for this parcel of land on which a school now stands was 2 million yen, $20,000 US.
You know, Michael, I think here you go again. You're always so suspicious about these kinds of things. Why don't we just go back and look at the documents that show what kind of negotiations were going on, and this will all become very clear.
Okay, wind it up and
Bing, and there are no documents.
How can that be? In Japan, we document everything.
Everything is stamped. Everybody has to be in on it. You have to go through the interagency process. Yes, of course. There were documents, but they're gone. According to the bureaucrats in charge, the negotiation process, all of that was, yes, documented, but the documents have been destroyed.
That's outrageous.
It's outrageous. And of course, it's every day something new comes out about this thing.
Okay,
here's the thing, though, with Mr. Abe. He said, I had no knowledge of the way that the school was financed.
Honey, what the hell did you do?
And it reminds me of the old Scooby-Doo cartoon. Do you remember when they would take the mask off the villain, and the villain would say, and I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids. So it's sort of, he's playing, hey, I had no knowledge, and if you've got the video, if you've got some proof out there, bring it on.
No,
so he's already been baiting the press.
He said, I will resign as Prime Minister and as a politician.
That is huge. So isn't that just like feeding chum into the water, and the opposition parties hear that?
Yeah, it's not just the opposition parties, it's the media. And the media has responded in a very...
The media is the opposition.
Well, no, that's
fake news.
Wrong country. In this case, the media has behaved very, very interestingly. The Asahi has been lying low for a long time because it got beaten down by its revelations scandals. It's suddenly awake again. And the anti-Abe media, the Mainichi group, the Chunichi group, have been going all in on this scandal, as has NHK, the national broadcaster.
Well, there's something
That's
here.
a big surprise. If NHK is on board.
NHK is on board. The only people who aren't on board is Sankei, for the reason that's relatively understandable. They believe in this ideology. They do. They believe that Japan has been weakened by the suppression of some of the values, not all of them, of the pre-1945 state.
Right.
But then the Yomiuri has been the quietest of all. It's pretended that it's just not there. If you look at their coverage, you look at their website or in any kind of database, they have hardly reported it at all, which indicates just by inverse logic that it's huge.
Right.
Because they are the propaganda outfit for the Abe administration, and they have ignored this. So this is big. But the opposition, what they've been doing, they let the budget pass.
No, we talked about the budget 2 weeks ago, said it was a snooze fest. It passed last week.
It passed last week with the 30 days to go, and now the docket is completely open for Moritomo Gakuen, the name of the organization, 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Well, would this lead to any of the protest marches like we saw against nuclear power? Is there an effort here to make this a sustaining protest beyond just the pages of the newspaper? NHK, though, is huge because NHK has been such a lapdog for Abe with the board members there. Who really
people have gotten in trouble for far less.
Yeah, but in this case, the public is still not up to speed on this.
Right.
There are so many loose ends to this story. And what did the Prime Minister know and when did he know it is really up in the air. The destruction of evidence, of course, makes this all the more interesting, and it's going to be, it's not going to be so much protest as the actual institutions, the Tokyo Prosecutor's Office, the Osaka branch of the prosecutor's office, the various local municipal governments, finding out what the heck happened. And the biggest kahuna of all is the finance ministry.
Right.
And the finance ministry has to make a decision to either fish or cut bait, to sacrifice one of its own.
Right.
Who made the land deal happen?
Somebody will fall on the sword.
Or everything gets spilled. And we know that the LDP has worked desperately hard to prevent the principal of this school from testifying in the Diet, because he's going to say things that are not according to the narrative they've painted so far.
Oh, yeah. So he's a loose cannon. So is it also significant that this is an Osaka story? Because I wonder, how is it playing in the Osaka media? Everything is so Tokyo driven.
Right.
And how stories either grow legs or they just sort of filter away. But I'm wondering if there could be maybe a reporter in Osaka who's going to really expand the story and bring in the public interest.
Well, that's the question in many ways, especially since we have the dynamic of not only that school's ideology, but the fact that it basically taught its children to look down on Chinese and Korean residents of Japan, using derogatory terms, the absolutely toxic term Shinajin, to describe Chinese, which is a forbidden word. That was used in the documents that they would spread and they would give to the parents. If you really want a vision of complete nuttiness, you go to their website still. It's been scrubbed. The images of the Prime Minister and his wife have been taken off. Her message has been taken off. But what remains is still completely crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And you say, how did this place get just left alone? Where was it? How did we not know about this place?
Well, also very troubling to me is, who are these parents who are going in on this type of education? Are they not, they have to be aware that this is beyond just teaching right and wrong, because that's where we learn a lot of our lessons outside the home. It's in school. But this has the cast of Imperial Japan and military Japan, and as you say, reciting a script from 1898, this devotion to the imperial family and the sun god and all the rest that goes in with it. There's a parallel, too, in terms of, we can't find the documents now, to the end of World War II, where all of these documents regarding the government went missing as well.
Right.
Yeah, but in this case, I've asked the same thing. Who are the parents who are going to send their kids? There is a question in terms of, there's a difference between a kindergarten and an elementary school, which is the elementary school is what they're building.
And there's a difference between the public and the private.
That's right.
This is a private school.
The thing is about kindergartens is that it's voluntary. You don't have to send your kids to kindergarten. So this is a choice made by these parents. Elementary school is mandatory. Right? You're required to send your children to school. And if you choose private education, that's fine. But that goes directly under the Ministry of Education's her view.
Right.
And they were very careful about the curriculum. They're not so careful about the curriculums in kindergartens, even though it's also under them. And he clearly, this director, clearly knew the economics of the two were different, and that he had to have some kind of cachet. Being the only Shinto school in Japan was not enough. So he roped in Abe Akie as a PR effort, I think. And
well, I have to say something too, because I've written about Shinto, as you all know, in the Japan Times, and I've been to Issei Jingu, and that was prominent in the G7. It's really upsetting to me that Shinto, as a religion that really has this sort of decide as you go along or just have the experience of Shinto, is now getting integrated into politics.
Right.
Now, that's something that probably the Prime Minister always had in mind. But the beauty of the G7 and how it played worldwide is that it was more about Japan's origin, but not with this cast of Tokyo and the far-right politics. Right. So I think they changed the name, and it's now related to the rice culture, isn't it?
Morimoto Gakuin is the name of the school.
She's talking about the school's name is Mizuho no Kuni.
That's right.
There are a lot of, it's dog whistle.
Yes.
Mizuho no Kuni actually is Abe Shinzo's favorite name for Japan.
It's a dog whistle. I like that, Michael.
It is. It's dog whistle politics. Only the people who have ever read Abe Shinzo's book, Toward a New Nation, 2013, know that there is a chapter called the Mizuho no Kuni. And he talks about the ideal Japan is the Mizuho no Kuni. So by changing the name to Mizuho no Kuni, there was no difference. It's still the Abe Shinzo Memorial School. Okay? It's just for those people who are in the know. And I
this
think,
is a little obvious, though.
Yeah,
well, to make this leap isn't really that far of a leap.
And the second thing is about Shinto. Okay, yes, it says it's the only Shinto school, and it's really pugnacious. It says there are plenty of Christian schools, there are plenty of Buddhist schools, and yet there is no Shinto school. Well, there were. Until 1945, all schools were Shinto schools. But
because that was the official religion.
Right. Yes, but in that you use the word religion. That's the next thing. Right. If you go to the website, they say Shinto is not a religion. Shinto is the actual sentiment of the genetic. It's the actual sentiment of the Japanese people, and then in a box it says the Japanese race.
Oh,
and that it's in their DNA. Right. Okay. So that it is profoundly racist, it wants to get out of Article 25 of the Constitution, which says you cannot favor a religion. Public officials cannot favor a religion. Good, Shinto's not a religion, so therefore you can promote it. Right. This is an operator. This is a fraudster who has done a lot of juggling of all kinds of different ideas. And the Abes, who have been in politics for decades, they get taken in by this shyster, and it's going to bring them down.
Yeah, I don't know if they've been taken in. I think it seems all part of the same package. The bang for the buck for the Prime Minister is not that he's going to get a payoff because the land was sold below market value. I think the payoff for him is he's going to be able to establish this continuum of Shintoism in Japanese culture, contemporary Japanese culture.
But then now he's saying, I had nothing to do with it. So he's walking away from it. It's
because he got caught. I mean, it's a huge scandal. What would you do? I had nothing to do with it.
Well, I wouldn't bait the press. And that's something that we see happening now in the United States. The more Trump and Steve Bannon, his top advisor, really bait the media and refer to them disparagingly as the opposition party, and they have no respect as an institution, the more that is really just spurring them on. Right. And now people are buying the New York Times and reading the Washington Post online more than ever. And they're going to be perhaps some budding investigative reporters. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen with this particular scandal in Japan.
Well, no, the government's very careful because they know that this is real.
Yeah.
They're not going to say this is something that's made up by the Asahi Shimbun.
Right.
Because it's not made up by the Asahi Shimbun. It's real.
No, I know that they haven't said it's fake news, but I'm just wondering if this will actually inspire some people to want to go into journalism again, because I do think that it has the potential to really bring them down. Now, permanently, maybe not, but bring down the image of Abe, which right now he's running at levels that we haven't seen since his re-election,
right,
December 2012. So it just surprises me that they would be so naive and act like they didn't really have these strings attached to this school. So, because it goes back to, remember his talk about 100 million people, happy, shiny people,
right.
Which was very propagandistic, and we were talking about that on a show many, many moons ago.
Right, there's even a minister in charge of that.
That's right, and so you sort of wonder how big are they going to build this, because Japan wants to be on the world stage and seen as progressive and open-minded and in favor of internationalization. I know this as a professor, as you do, in internationalizing the curriculum. But then when you have this insularity and this going back in time, this sort of history redo, that's going to also damage the Japan brand as more people learn about, my God, this highly militaristic nation that it once was.
Right. Yeah, but that plays immediately into the kinds of people who've been contacting me on the story, which is China and Korean. There have been outlets that have contacted me, and in fact,
I
saw you on Chinese television the other day.
Thank you very much. And it plays into their narratives so strongly that you feel, oh, dang it. And the thing is, it's Abe Akie.
Yes.
The good Abe.
That's right. Again,
but the thing is,
the
softening agent, but that has always been a false narrative in my view. I mean, yes, she's the ambassador to the LGBT.
She had a bar when they first.
Yeah, that's right. She's also known for her love of Korean things and the ability to speak Korean. But at the same time, she's the Abe that goes regularly to Yasukuni Shrine and puts it up on her Facebook page. She's the one who made the contact with this right-wing organization. She's much more complicated than the cardboard representation of her as the good Abe has been. And we have to admit that. That, in many ways, the international media wanted to see her in a certain way that perhaps wasn't entirely realistic. So there's a self-delusion aspect there as well. We're coming to that as well. But in terms of internal politics, it's the financial scandal. The curriculum is one thing, and certainly outlets like the Red Flag, Akahata of the Japan Communist Party goes on about the crazy right-wing curriculum. But for most people, and what could really damage Abe is the involvement of the finance ministry in this land deal.
So this is going to go on all probably with the spring, and we're going to be talking about this.
Every day is new day, isn't it?
It's every new day, but also we have this weekend coming up, the LDP's all-important party Congress, where Abe is supposed to present this idea that there should be a third term in office for him, and that's supposed to be passed automatically. Maybe they'll do it just on a technical vote. We will open up the possibility that someone in the future can have a third term.
Back off just a tiny bit.
Just back off a little bit. But this was supposed to be his coronation ceremony, and boom, we have a scandal like he's never had before.
A richly textured and deeply complicated issue. We're going to continue to follow this. Let's see if this is the issue that brings the Prime Minister down. Stay tuned.